Hi everyone. How you doing? I um am here because I was um thinking about a lot of things last night as I was going to bed, and I thought I would share with all of you some of the thoughts I was having as I was falling asleep, and also with just a little bit more about what's going on with the campaign. Um, my son is I'm sitting in a library. My son is practicing the organ at the moment. And so I just thought I would take a moment to just say hi. Um, as I was getting ready to wind down my day yesterday, I saw a bunch of posts about what's happening in the Alaska refuge with millions of acres being sold for drilling and mining, or drilling and oil and all those things. And then I was also read an article from the Salt Lake Tribune about the national parks in Utah also being in danger of being mined and drilled as well. And as many of you know, I come from Utah. It's where I was born and raised, and I went to bed crying. Um, and I was so overwhelmed with emotion because I kept thinking of all the beautiful land that um, exists in this country. And I was also thinking about the fact that our national parks are visited by so many people. And um, the idea that people from all over the world come to our national parks so that they can enjoy the beauty and the splendor of the land that is protected in the national park system. And, not to be super confused with the idea that also those lands were protected because when they created the national park system, it was actually to keep native people off of the land and to take that land away. And so it's a complicated history, but also a really important one for us to be thinking about, because the impacts of destroying these lands aren't just about these extractive policies of drilling and digging and mining and pulling all these resources out of the earth and making rich people richer. But it's also about how are we honoring the land where we reside and where we live. And so I was overcome with just this terrible sadness that this is where we are as a nation. And I've been talking to voters. I've been calling voters every day to introduce myself to them and tell them a little bit more about why I'm running for Congress, and also ask them what issues are most important to them. And as I'm talking to people, the number one thing that they are most concerned about is the rise of this authoritarian power in our country. And I just wanted to say, me, also me too. Um, and that's part of why I'm running for Congress. I was involved in politics for most of my adult life, doing policy and lobbying and advocacy, and I fell in love with the process of lawmaking. It is dirty and messy, and also it's so beautiful. Like when we are passing laws that benefit the many, that help rise up the voices of people who are in need. When we take care of our disabled folks, when we take care of our veterans and our elderly people. A lot of the work that I used to do um, when I was an activist and a lobbyist was really around, it was around, creating opportunities for families um, to take care of themselves and their children. And I just keep thinking, I hear so much from so many people that they're so despondent and they're just really struggling. And just with the general sadness about what is going on in our country. And I keep thinking that my run for Congress can give people hope. And there's a lot of other people who are running for public office. I have a friend in Pittsfield who's running for city council, and there's so many races going on nationally and locally in our communities that can give us hope that there are still people that believe in our democracy and the rule of law. And there's many of us that are working to, infiltrate the government and represent people who aren't currently represented, particularly in Congress. I'm a, I'm a working mom, and whose business is being deeply impacted by the current economy. My husband is a veteran who went to school on the GI Bill and followed the rules and did what he was told to do by the VA and by the government so that he could be hired under veterans preference. And then his job was rescinded by order of the president in January. And I believe truly deeply in my heart, based on my lived experience as a policymaker and an activist, and an advocate, that what we are craving right now is people in office who understand what we are all feeling. And we're on like day 25 of the government shutdown. People are going to lose their SNAP benefits a week from today. And my family was on SNAP for a long time when we first moved to Oregon because we were in this huge transition. And I was just working as an adjunct professor, and my husband was going to school full time on the GI Bill. And the GI Bill doesn't give veterans enough money to live on, especially when they have kids. We had little kids when we moved up here, and SNAP saved our life and made it so that we could feed our kids. And the economic ramifications of people losing their SNAP benefits, when people can't go to the grocery store, it's not just that their kids go hungry or the elderly go hungry or disabled people go hungry. It goes beyond that. It's going to have ripple effects in our economy. And I have so many people asking me, well, if you're running for Congress, what are you going to do different? And the number one thing I keep going back to is that I grew up in a place that did not accept me. It did not. I was not, and I had friends, and I feel like I had a community, but I grew up in a place where me being who I am as a human being a woman, being non-Mormon, being bisexual, being Native, I was problematic for a lot of people. And, we all struggle throughout our lives in one way or another. But I think we need people in Congress who know how to fight for our livelihoods. And I have spent my entire career fighting for this livelihood. I lay in bed every night and think about how remarkable it is that I'm even in this place. That I had grandparents and other family members that were able to care for me when my mom couldn't. That I have this really beautiful, strong foundation and relationship with my children and my husband. And I think about how I built that out of a very desperate childhood. And I think that we deserve that from our elected officials. We deserve to have elected officials that aren't just going along with what their party tells them to do on both sides of the aisle. I think that what gives me hope about my campaign is that I'm running because I feel called to this. I feel called to run for office. I feel like I am the person that can stand up against what is happening, particularly on the Republican side of the aisle, because I have fought for that. In a very conservative state, being raised in Utah and now living here in Oregon, and living in a part of Oregon that is actually quite conservative. Or, shocker for anybody who doesn't know or who sees this later, Oregon is not actually a super liberal state. And I have the professional background of engaging with and working with people who don't agree with me at all, who don't believe in my right to my humanity. And I think that's really important for us to consider as we're looking at the upcoming 2026 election. A lot of the voters I've been talking to don't know that our Democratic primary is happening on May 19th. So in Oregon, in Congressional District 4, our Democratic Party is not very far away. It is, about 6 months away as I'm recording this. And there's still a lot of work that we have to do and a lot of pushing that we have to do against the incumbent elected officials, particularly. It's why I'm running uh, against our incumbent, because I don't believe that she has a clear understanding of what our families are currently facing in this current economy. And I'm living in it. I'm raising kids in it. Our oldest daughter had to move back home because she couldn't afford to live on her own with her boyfriend. And, there's a lot going on. And as I wept myself to sleep last night, I thought to myself, this is why. I'm running because I know what it looks like to look at our land and think we must stop this atrocity. There must be something that we can do when we come together collectively to fight against mining and forest deforestation and just extracting from our lands. And that means we work with people who are working the land, and that we really amplify putting safeguards in place so that we are pushing back against what's happening. I was talking to a voter. She was really, really lovely. She was a doctor, and she was talking to me about voter suppression and CDC guidance and how disinformation is eroding trust in public health. And I completely agree that, we are concerned about what is happening with RFK Jr.'s unchecked degradation of our medical and science institutions. You know, as a congresswoman, I can put policies into place to make sure that we are getting the CDC back on track, that we are actually making recommendations about vaccines that are based on actual science. And what I'm seeing right now is that there are not bills being introduced to push that to the next level. And, I'm an old school punk rocker. You know, I'm a child of the 80s. Like, we have to push back against these systems that are being put into place that are putting all of us at risk. And the political appointees that the administration has put into power are not experts. They are, you know, doing what they can to get in and and be near to this power that is based on junk science and um, extraction. The word extraction keeps coming back to me a lot. And as Congresswoman, I will have the opportunity to put policies in place that push back against this extractive way that the administration is moving forward. I am not delusional enough to think that this isn't going to be a fight. But we need champions in office who are willing to engage in it. And right now, Congressional District 4 doesn't have a champion. They don't have a fighter. And it's time for us to insist on one. So I just wanted to share with you what I've been thinking about, especially since this news came out about our public lands. I'm also deeply concerned about what's happening with ICE and deportations. I'm a social worker through and through. And so advocating for our communities and people who have been historically underrepresented in this country is really important to me and my ethos. And so I just wanted to come in here and ramble and share with you what I've been thinking about what's happening in the country. You'll probably see a lot more of this from me. And I'd love to know your comments. I'd love to hear back from you about what you think about what I'm saying. Um, and as always, I really greatly appreciate you supporting this campaign. Make sure you like this video. Also, feel free to share it with your friends, especially if your friends live in Oregon in Congressional District 4. And also, please invite other people to subscribe to my page, like and follow my page, and also to like and follow my other social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky, and YouTube. And so I would just be really honored and grateful if you all would share this also with the people that you know. And I would be remiss in saying this is a grassroots campaign. So every dollar that you donate to this campaign goes directly to the campaign. So it goes to pay for bumper stickers and lit, and it pays for my travel to get around the district. It pays my staff who have been working as volunteers until we raise more money. And so every single dollar that you donate to this campaign goes directly to the campaign to get the word out in advertising and literature and travel and staff costs, to pay for um, us to get around the district. Um, it doesn't go to me, y'all. It goes to the campaign. And every dollar counts, because I'm going up against someone who is taking corporate money and has a very large slush fund. So thank you so much for listening to me. Thanks for being here with me today. And if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Put them in the comments or send me a message. And I just think you're all really great. And I really appreciate you being here to support my campaign. Feel free to share this video with folks. And feel free to have a little hope. Because I think when it comes to races like this, we can have hope. And we can work together and come together to change the representation for Congressional District 4 here in Oregon. So thanks so much. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.